Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Corn Pops? Oh, I've always been a Corn Pops guy. I love Corn Pops. Thanks at Prime James. Yeah, we finished Twilight today. I feel like the second the credits rolled on Breaking Dawn Part 2, I lost a piece of myself that I'll never get back. Like, there's a little hole in my soul now. Because there will never be a franchise as unapologetically awful as this. 5 movies that never stopped getting worse. All the way up until the end. I thought people were exaggerating. It actually just continues to get worse and worse. Not only in terms of like writing, plot, characters, and pretty much everything you'd expect in a film, but even visually. Like, in the final movie, it was by far the worst. So, like, up to that point. In fact, probably just the worst in all of big budget cinema. So, apparently the baby's a big deal. Most of you have probably seen this CGI baby. That's I'm getting ahead of myself. You know, how about we'll start with Breaking Dawn Part 1. Actually, that might just be more intuitive. Breaking Dawn Part 1 picks up where Eclipse left off. Kind of, I guess. So they're going to their wedding. Bella and Edward's wedding. And they're like building up some kind of tension with it. Jake's like, man, this is so fucking cringe. I'm gonna take my shirt off and run in the rain for the 50th fucking time. And then it comes to the wedding. I thought something was gonna go wrong, like some kind of attack or something, but nothing ever did. They just get married while Bella looks like she's going to puke the entire time and looks genuinely repulsed to be around Edward. And it's not until after they're married where Edward's like, I've got a wedding gift for you. So he takes her out back. And I thought he was about to like put her down like a rabid animal or something. Like, it was really ominous. He's like, I got a fucking wedding gift for you, but it needs to be in a secluded area. So he takes her out behind the wedding venue and brings her Jacob, the guy that she has cheated on him with 3 times. And he's like, I'm going to leave you guys alone now. So she runs up crying and hugging Jake. And for the first time in this movie, she starts to smile. Like, she looked nothing but uncomfortable and miserable around Edward. He brings out Jake, and she's like fucking giddy and excited. And then and then she says something about how she's not going to turn into a vampire yet because they wanted to wait till after the honeymoon so that way they could enjoy sex. And Jake fucking flips. He takes her by the shoulders and starts shaking her like Homer Simpson strangling Bart. And he's like, are you fucking stupid? Are you stupid? He's going to kill you. Because one of the things is he's a virgin and they haven't had sex because he's afraid that he'd literally break her. Like, blow her up from being too strong to fuck her. So when he hears that, he's like, oh my god, she's going to get dead. Fucking pussy overload. So he calls her stupid and starts like spitting and shouting. And Edward's like, calm down, man, calm down. He's like, no, you're going to kill her. And I'm going to kill you. So then he storms off again. It's so crazy. Thanks for resub Snorlax, Cloudy, Salk, James, and the Tier 1 Milk, Tier 1 Terry, and the Prime Nether. So then, fast forward, they're on their honeymoon after the wedding. They're on a secluded island. And she doesn't want to be a vampire yet. She wants to have sex as a human so she could feel it without, losing her soul. Because when she turns into a vampire, she loses her soul in the process, whatever. So it begins like this cat and mouse game of her trying to seduce Edward in the worst ways imaginable. Like, it's all like robotic. It's almost animatronic to a certain extent. And then eventually she just pulls the old Reddit naked man where she just literally gets naked and then just walks up to Edward. And then it's in the ocean. So there's like moonlight going on there, and then they start kissing and fiddling around a bit. Then they go to the bed, and Edward immediately breaks the whole bed. So he I guess the second he felt her touched, orgasmed, and like fucking blasted the entire bed to pieces. And then they finish. She's got like bruises, and Edward feels bad. He's like, oh my god, I fucking hurt you. I've ruined everything. And then Bella's just like, no, it was like the best night of my life. And he's like, no, it's not. I fucking killed you. You're like super dead. I hurt you. Look at all these bruises. And it goes on for such a painfully long amount of time. And then, I shit you not, the next fucking scene, like the next morning after this, she pukes into a toilet and it's revealed she's instantly pregnant. They had sex one time and played chess the other 90% of the time they were on vacation, literally just playing chess. And she gets pregnant instantly. Instantly. So that's the major plot point of Breaking Dawn. So all of the drama is completely materialized in this movie. At no point did anything build up to it. It just happens all over the place, which convinces me even further that the writer had no clue what the fuck to do with this story at all, and nothing was actually thought out. It's just all ass pulls constantly, which makes it so beautiful. So she's now pregnant, and Edward's freaking out. He's now having PTSD. So they're trying to figure out what to do. Do they abort the baby? Does she have the baby? And the big problem is, since it's a vampire baby, it's super strong, so it's killing her from the inside out, which is what this is. Bella, the baby is crushing you. So as the baby is growing, it's breaking all of her bones in her body. So they eventually go back to the Carlisle's place, the Cullens mansion, and they get there. Jacob eventually finds out, and he's fucking pissed. He's so mad. He's like, "You broke the treaty. She's gonna die from this baby now." And then all of the other werewolves, for some reason, care so badly about this. Like, they get so bent out of shape, and there's so much to digest. So initially, it was only Jacob who cared, because obviously he loved Bella, and now he's getting, fucking cucked here or whatever. So the girl he loves is now pregnant with another man's baby, and she's back. And she's still sending him confusing signals about being in love with him, and he's still in love with her. So he's mad about it, and he's like, "Gonna kill that baby. We gotta do something about this," to the pack leader. And the pack leader's like, "Nah, it's not that big of a deal. Doesn't matter." And Jake's like, "No, we have to do something about it." But then, 20 minutes later, Jake is like, "All right, we have to protect the Bella and the baby." And the pack leader, who minutes ago was like, "Hey, it's not a big deal. It's fine. This isn't our fight," all of a sudden decides that he needs to hunt down and kill the Cullens. Like, I don't know if I missed something, but, like, he knew all of this information prior, and he was okay with it. But the second, like, it starts happening, he's like, "Okay, now we have to kill all the Cullens." Even though only minutes ago he was, like, totally fine with it. It's not, like, completely nonsensical. I think what happened is Stephanie Meyer, the writer, realized that there was no actual, like, villain or conflict, so they made something up out of nowhere. It's like, and she couldn't think of anything, so she just had to, like, flip a switch in the pack leader's brain to make it a war. So he was like, "Well, technically he hurt her, which is against our treaty and our truce. So now we're gonna kill her," which is exactly what Jake had said that he argued against, like, moments before. It was so all over the place. Actually, big tier 3 psycho. I appreciate that. Welcome aboard. The Prime Riz and the resub Shinobi, Dravos, Happy, Mercy, and the gift sub Guitar and the Prime Lux and the resub Agonizing. So anyway, she's pregnant. Now the werewolves that have been their friends for a while are no longer their friends and are actively trying to kill them. And Jake is still mad, but still cares about Bella very much. And he's convinced she's going to die from this pregnancy, giving birth to this vampire baby that's going to kill her. Edward feels the same way. All the other vampires are like, "Look, if you go through with this baby, it's going to kill you." And she's like, "That's fine. That's okay. No, it's all good." So that's kind of like most of the movie. And eventually it culminates with her being super pregnant, and they realize that she's starving because the baby's feeding off her like a parasite. So she has to start drinking blood to feed the baby, which makes the baby even stronger, breaking more of her bones. And then I have to pull up the scene because you have to see this. The shock and awe on my face when this scene happened will never be replicated in cinema history. So what happened? Actually, I don't even want to tell you. You need to experience this raw. Baby making scene is not what I'm looking for. What would I call it? Maybe back breaking? Yeah, this is the one. So, she drops her styrofoam sippy cup of blood, and in an effort to pick it up, breaks her spine, which severs the placenta inside her tummy, which means now they have to act in an emergency situation in order to C-section the baby out. So that's exactly what they do. That scene was almost startling when that happened. Out of fucking nowhere. So she was going over names for the baby, and I shit you not, one of them was literally Edward Jacobs. So combining Edward and the other love of her life, Jacob, which would have been the ultimate cuckoldry if they actually went through with that. But then they settle on something called Renesmee, which is a horrible name. A horrible, horrible name. And then that happens, the placenta snaps. And so now they're in this situation. It's an emergency C-section. They're all acting quick. Jasper and Alice have to leave the room because the blood's making them go into a frenzy. They get real hungry. Rose has to leave as well for the same reason. So then it's just Jake and Edward doing the C-section, basically. And they get the baby out, and Bella dies. Edward's desperately like biting on her, like he's licking or like he's chewing the last remaining bits of a chicken wing, trying desperately to turn her into a vampire to save her life. It's not working, but the baby's okay. Meanwhile, while this is happening, the werewolves are trying to break in and kill everyone because just because. Is it Prime Soulless, Ollie, Brock, and the resub Coop and Relaxed. The treaty. But yeah, I get it. The treaty is like, I guess, sacred, even though it hasn't been broken. At least not according to Sam initially, but now apparently Sam's changed his mind. So they're attacking because the treaty was broken. So the vampires are fending them off in order to keep Renesmee safe. Jake then decides like he's going to stop everything. He'll become the alpha. So he does. He becomes the alpha. And there's a couple of scenes where like the dogs are telepathically communicating with each other. So after Jake actually it was before that. Bella's dead. People are already forgetting about her. They're moving on with their life. Renesmee is getting all the attention. Rose has got Renesmee. Jake is still pretty upset Bella's dead, but he goes back into the house and it looks like he's ready to kill the baby because he blames it for the death of Bella. And as he's approaching the baby, there's this scene where the CGI baby, this fucking abominable creature, looks at him while he's like lurking in the background about to murder her. And they lock eyes, and then immediately like the whole future is laid out in front of them. And Jake is going on about how this baby needs a protector, a hero, a savior. So he drops to his knees, and it turns out he imprinted on the baby. That thing that I was criticizing from the previous films because it was so meaningless. The whole thing about how when you imprint on someone, it's like a love for life kind of deal. So he literally imprints on an infant, a newborn. Which is so fucking weird. I couldn't believe they had the chutzpah to say that with a straight face. So they turn Jake into like a pedophile guardian, basically, where it's like he's waiting for her to grow up so they can be together, and until then he protects her. And that is the conclusion, by the way. That apparently the two of them do ride off in the sunset together, Renesmee and Jacob. So it's really fucking creepy. So yeah, he imprints on this baby. Oh, and I forgot one of the wildest parts. You remember how Edward can read minds? Well, while Bella's still pregnant, he puts his hand on her tummy and starts reading the baby's mind. And he's like, oh, it says, it likes the sound of your voice. And it says, it thinks that you're going to be a great mom and can't wait to come out here. And I lost my shit. I was like, what the fuck? This baby's already, like, speaking English? like, good lord, it's about to give birth to young Sheldon, is what Aaron said. Like, the fucking thing's already in there speaking fluent English, I guess, to Edward. So he's reading the baby's mind and shit. So when the baby comes out, it's like super wise and full of wisdom. And it has the gift of being able to project its memories into the brain of whoever it touches. So the baby's like putting its little fucking hands on people's faces, and it's really creepy, and projecting its first memories into their brain. So that's kind of where Breaking Dawn Part 1 ends, with the whole imprinting thing. So now Jacob's going to be fated to fall in love with Renesmee. Well, he's already in love with Renesmee as a fucking toddler. So now it's just waiting until she turns 18, or resembles that of an 18-year-old, I guess. So that was super weird. That was super, super weird. And then in Breaking Dawn Part 2, I think Stephenie Meyers realized that they still don't have like a villain. They can't just keep using the werewolves on this very loose treaty loophole thing. So then she brings back in the Volturi, or whatever the fuck they're called, that cult of vampires, like the High Council. She finally remembers that they existed and brings them in as the main bad guys. So what ends up happening is Bella awakens. She's been turned, surprise, she's a vampire, she survives. And now she's learning to be a vampire, and she immediately masters it, in under an hour. She speedruns it. That thing they were talking about how difficult it is to control your hunger, and how it takes like 100 years before you can finally be normal. Fucking Jasper, the Confederate soldier in the family, is still not able to control his hunger, which is why he has to keep leaving the room. But Bella, within minutes, can do it effortlessly. There's a rock climber while they're out in the woods who cuts himself on some rocks. Bella climbs up to him and she's like, I gotta get out of here. So then she jumps off of a giant fucking cliff, probably to fall to her death, I don't know. And Edward's like, what a woman. And he jumps after her. So she immediately masters that. They were also going to just pretend like she was dead to her dad, who's already an alcoholic and suffering from immense depression because of her daughter being always miserable and a downer around him. So he's already drowned himself in alcohol for all 4 of these movies, and they were just going to let him believe that his daughter died in a Switzerland hospital. And it's not until Jacob is like, hey guys, this is kind of fucked up, right? Like, he's already miserable. Dude's drowning in PBR. Like, the least we can do is just let him know, like, she's okay. So he goes over to Charlie's house and he's like, Charlie, that's the dad's name, I've got something to show you. And he starts stripping, so he takes off his shirt and his boots and his pants. And the dad's like, Jacob, what does this have to do with anything? So then he turns into a werewolf to show him, like, things aren't always as they seem. And then tells him that, you know, Bella's alive, but she's different. So then he brings Charlie over to the vampire's house, and Bella's like, yeah, I just can't tell you, but trust me, I'm okay. Also, that's my daughter. And by this point, the daughter's rapidly aging. So the daughter's already, like, resembling a 3-year-old. And they use CGI as well. It's not just the CGI baby. They use CGI in the actual child actress. So every time you see her, it's like really bad Snapchat face filter tracking on her face. So it always looks like something's off. Like her face is on the bottom right side. Like her eyes, nose, mouth is like the bottom right side of her face for half of the film. Which is really off-putting. So he's like, okay, coochie coochie coo, that's your baby, cool. All right, I'm gonna leave. Glad you're okay. I'm gonna go back and fucking butt chug more PBR. And then the High Council. Oh, hold on, I got ahead of myself. Then she takes Renesmee out into the woods once she ages up to like a 5-year-old by the next day, and she's like teaching her how to be a vampire. And she jumps up to grab a snowflake. And then another vampire, part of the Cullen family, who lives in Alaska, just happened to be nearby and saw this and panicked, thinking that it was an immortal child, which is a forbidden thing in the Twilight universe, I guess, where these vampire children come around once every now and then, and it's like this big affront to their society, so they instantly execute them. And I'll quickly show you a scene of what this looks like with the immortal children. So this is Dakota Fanning. She's part of the High Council. She's the one that can project pain onto people. So they have to kill these immortal children. So they kill the mom here because it's such a bad thing, and then they also have to kill the baby. And they do it in a really ceremonious way. This is how they execute the baby. So that takes care of that. Banished straight to hell. So once that lady sees Renesmee, she's like, holy fuck, another immortal child. I have to report this to the High Council. This is terrible. So she goes to the High Council. It's like, there's an immortal child. And they're like, all right, assemble the troops. We gotta throw some more kids into a fire. ASAP. Fucking potato sack them. So then the Volturi or whatever, Voltorbs, fucking Voltron Force, whatever, they assemble, they move out on the Cullens, and Alice gets a vision of this war happening. And then Alice is like, I'm going to leave and I'm taking Jasper, I'm not telling anyone what I saw. So she just leaves without any explanation and leaves behind a couple of clues to Bella, even though she could have just said everything from the beginning to save everyone the trouble, but whatever. So she just dips. She just says, I'm out, ski. And then the rest of this film is assembling a ragtag crew of Avengers to fight against the Volturi Council. And it sucks ass. It is the worst part of the entire series. It is literally just grabbing random vampires that have different abilities that range from water bending to taser fingers. It's so stupid. Oh, and also the waterbender is Rami Malek. The Rami Malek. He can do more than waterbend. He controls elements. But it's basically like waterbending and shit. Thanks for resub Chef, Awful, Hobo, Fix, and the gift sub Cup and Prime Creamy. So they're traveling all over the world and getting this crew of vampires together, and they're bringing Renesmee on this like world tour where she goes around and just touches people's faces in order to prove that she is half human, half vampire, which is crazy shit. She's not an immortal child. She's a half human, half vampire. Never been seen before, and they're all losing their mind like, okay, we will literally sacrifice everything for this toddler. Everything. Everything we've ever known, we will literally sacrifice for them because she touched our face and showed us some goofy memories. And among this group of vampires, there's one guy who has like 12 lines in the movie. I can't remember what his name is, like All-Star or something, I don't know. But he is indecipherable. They must have told him to do some goofy accent, but didn't give him any indication. So his first line, he comes in, he's got blonde hair and a beard, and he's like really mysterious, and he looks like he'd be really powerful, but you never actually see him do anything. So he comes around and he comes out from behind the car, and the camera pans to him, and I thought it was going to be an impactful moment, and he literally says, hey, and then like runs away. Like I think it was English, but the accent they told him to do was completely gibberish. Actual gibberish. It came out there like SpongeBob on Leif Erikson Day. A hinga-dinga-durgan. It wasn't even words. All of us, when we were watching it, asked each other what he just said. It was so stupid. It was so fucking stupid. And then he scurries away and then jumps up into the attic. And that's like half of the vampires that show up. They also get together like fucking My Chemical Romance vampires. These two like German guys, I think. And they're like, we're here to help, but not even because we care about like Renesmee or being the half mortal, half vampire thing, but because we don't like the High Council. They're kind of cringe. And that's their whole thing. Thanks the resub Trey, Prime Chad, Zeus, and the gift sub, or the tier 1 Creamy. And the resub Dank. Was just talking about that Smokey. It was fucking awful. So then that guy, I really thought was going to have a big role to play, especially in the war, because they're hyping up this imminent war. It is coming. They are ready to fight. And he even has a couple of scenes going into there where he's like just kind of lurking in the background, looking on like a mentor almost. And then even says a couple more things. Like he'll come into a room and he'll be like, and then that'll be his input. And then he'll do that again. And then the final battle comes around and they keep hyping this guy up like this guy is serious business. And then the battle comes around and he's not even there. Like he's not even there, I don't think. I don't remember even seeing him in the battle. He didn't do anything. He is completely pointless. Fucking pointless. Doesn't look like it. He's not in any of these scenes. Well, he is in this scene here. He's a guy up in the tree looking on, but where's his line? Like his very impactful line of actual fucking Animal Crossing speak. Where is that? Look up Alistair talking. I doubt that'll have anything. Because this isn't his scene. This is where they introduced the Power Man 5000 vampires. These guys. I don't remember where I left off. But anyway, they're still prepping for the war. Now all of a sudden the werewolves are totally okay with everything because Jacob imprinted on a baby. So they're like, alright, we won't hurt them anymore. We'll leave them alone. In fact, we'll actually fight with you. In fact, we'll risk our entire pack in order to protect this baby that Jacob has just imprinted on. So now all the werewolves are on the vampire side. And they're ready to stand against the High Council as well. Meanwhile, since there's so many vampires coming to Forks, there's more werewolves being formed. So there's like a scene where some kids are in a forest and they're like, oh, ooh, ouch, oh. And then he turns into a werewolf and Jacob is like, calm down. It's okay. So now there's more werewolves and they're all ready to risk it all for the vampires that in the last movie they were trying to kill. They go through training. Bella learns that she can project her shield, which is the thing that rejects all of the other vampire gifts. The thing where like Edward can't read her mind, no one on the High Council can hurt her with her or read anything about her. Probably because she's so fucking stupid she doesn't have real thoughts to read. She's learned how to project that stupidness shield around anyone. So now she can like focus really hard and project that to protect people. A little force field. What else? I think that's all the crucial pieces there. So then we get to the climactic showdown. They're in the giant snow battleground. High Council has shown up. They have like a little army. They have, on Carlisle's side, they have like pretty decent amount of people as well. And they're ready to fucking clash. They're ready to get after it. It's in the second video.
I'll be in the attic.
Yeah, it's like the only like intelligible line, I'll be in the attic. Everything else was like, yeah, I don't know why the video is so quiet. I don't know what to tell you, man. Just watch it on your own. I don't know why it's so quiet. That was just poorly put on YouTube, I guess. But yeah, he does nothing. I don't even think he's in the final battle. I think the actor might have quit before it even came to that scene. Or they forgot about him. I don't really know. So they're showing down in the final climactic beatdown, I guess. And Alice and Jasper come out of the woodwork. And it's a big moment. Like, Alice is back. Whoa! And she goes over to the High Council side. And it's like... Well, actually, before that, that lady that snitched on him, the tattletale, eventually they're like, is this the little girl you saw, that Renesmee? And she's like, I don't know. She's like fucking 20 years older now because she keeps aging like Benjamin Button. So she's like, I'm not sure. It must have been wrong. They're probably innocent. And they're like, we don't tolerate mistakes. So they rip her arms and head off and she dies. They light her on fire too. And then Alice comes out and it's like, touch me so that way you can see the future. So he does. And then that's when Alice realizes that no matter what she shows him, the bad guy was bent on a fight no matter what. So that's when the war breaks out. Alice hits him with a capoeira kick that sends him flying. And then all hell breaks loose. So you got the vampires running each other. The werewolves are coming in as well. And it's all pretty awful. Like, it's usually just one or two things that happen. So all the vampires fight like my cat does when she plays with a toy, just like pawing everything. So all the vampires are like slapping each other around, fucking patting each other on the chest. Some of them like get turned to glass. And then a couple werewolves die. So Seth, who I haven't even mentioned yet because he was such an unimportant character, Seth dies because one of the vampires gets him in a headlock. Then eventually Rami Malek's character, the element bender, slams a hole into the earth that splits it in half with this giant ravine that leads into a volcano. So then a lot of the bad vampires fall in there. But then so too does a werewolf named Leah, I think, who was like a good person, I guess. I don't know, she didn't do anything. Her whole storyline was that she was in love with the previous pack leader, but he dumped her to fuck another woman. So she's got a pretty tragic backstory, and she never actually finds closure. She finishes this movie. Well, she dies completely alone with the man she loves fucking another girl, meanwhile still leading her on. So hers is probably the saddest out of the whole film. And then Carlisle jumped at the bad guy and gets decapitated by the bad guy, so he's dead, which, you know, very tragic, I guess. Who else? More fighting. These, like, Euro metal vampires, they don't do anything, even though their whole thing is about, like, being powerful and out for revenge. But eventually the good vampires start to get the edge. Dakota Fanning's pain vampire is getting thwarted by Bella because she's blocking everything. So eventually she gets taken and thrown to the wolves who kill her. And it all leads up to Edward and Bella fighting the main High Council vampire. And they rip his head off and light him on fire. He dies. And what happens next had me audibly shout, "No way." Because I didn't believe anything would ever actually do this in the modern... Well, I guess this is a 10-year-old movie now. But that's still modern enough where this trope I would have expected to be long dead. So what happens is, after the main vampire dies and gets lit on fire, it zooms in on his eyes as they're about to be lit on fire, and then it zooms out. Turns out, it was all a dream. It was all Alice's vision. So when she walked up and put her hand in his hand so he could see everything she sees, he saw the future, which was that whole fight we just watched. It wasn't real. It was a vision. They literally pulled "it was just a dream." I was actually disgusted. Like the resub Dragon, Kinney, and the Tier 1 Crafty, and the resub Demetus, Toad, Reth, Lele, Schlong, and Tier 1 Flume, and Prime, Albacami, and Top. So after he sees that if they fight, he'll lose, he's like, "This is no good. This is no good." And then out of fucking nowhere yet again, the main bad guy's brother, who's also on the High Council, is like, "Brother, but that could be a danger." And he's like, panicking. And Alice is like, "Won't be a danger. I promise." And then two random fucking people we have never seen before start walking across the snow slowly. And they're like, "Hello, I am a half-human, half-vampire. I'm 1,500 years old. I'm 150 years old. And I'm just fine. We're not a threat to you. She's not the only one." And that was proof enough to the High Council that this is okay and can actually be celebrated. And that's how it stops. That's pretty much where it ends. Well, that's not where it ends. Now everyone's good, everyone's happy. It's all, nothing but great stuff all around. Wonderful conclusion. So the battle is thwarted, everyone goes home, and everyone is happier knowing that there is now Renesmee, half human, half vampire, the future of their race, whatever. So, it's a happily ever after. Edward and Bella keep fucking. Bella also, since she's learned to control her projection, or her shield, like her gift, which shuts everyone out, she terminates it for a moment, lets her guard down in order for Edward to finally read her blank fucking mind. So then it's this really emotional montage of going through all 5 Twilight movies from the beginning. And it's a really cute idea, actually. I actually really appreciated the idea of it. But what's very painfully obvious is not a single time throughout any of these 5 movies has she ever smiled around Edward. So they have this AMV where he's like reading her mind and seeing all of their best moments together from the very beginning, where she was like really shy and, coy, but like loved him. And not once does she smile. Not a single smile. Not one. Just misery. And meanwhile, it's supposed to be like really emotional and like happy and upbeat. But it was just sad. It was so sad. So he reads her mind, and that's great. And then there's like a flash forward to the future. Jacob and Renesmee are fucking in love, married or whatever. They're dating. Edward and Bella still happily in love. Well, not happily. No such thing with Bella. It's all just neutral. They're together still. And then the credits roll. That's where the fucking franchise ends. I gotta tell you, when it was going through the credits, they did it in a very tasteful way, actually. They literally brought up every character that ever existed for even a single second and, like, credited the actor who played them. Even the unnamed ones from Breaking Dawn Part 2 from, like, their group of Avengers that literally did nothing, actually nothing. They credited them. It was really cute. And they also credited ones that weren't even in this film, so, like, the original cast with Anna Kendrick in them. It was cute, and I actually felt myself realizing, like, wow, this was special. I will never see a series this shamelessly awful again. It won't happen. At no point does it ever gain even a modicum of self-awareness. It stays perfectly content being horrible. And I actually got kind of sad. This existed in the perfect time period where the internet wasn't like it is today. So, like, Twitter wasn't as popular. You still had Tumblr, but it wasn't as popular. YouTube and everything was really just starting to take off. So they never got feedback from fans, from, like, the general populace. They only got fans. So they became deluded into thinking it was good, I think. Because they only ever saw the huge numbers, and I think it grossed like $3 billion across all 5 movies. Very financially profitable. Huge, huge, huge franchise. All they saw was positives. Teenage girls loved it. Team Edward and Team Jacob, cultural phenomenon. Everyone was talking about it. All they knew is that it was very popular and it was beloved by its target audience. So it just kept getting worse. Meanwhile, in today's day and age, there is no way you don't know if something's bad. It existed in the perfect time period so it could stay oblivious to how horrible it was. We will never get something like this series again.